Are your dbt runs taking forever to run because your dataset is large? What if I told you you could run your dbt incremental models in batches? And these batches are idempotent, which means that at every time you run every batch, you still get the same amount of data. Now, this is what you can do with dbt's Microbatch Incremental Strategy. On this video, we're going to be exploring dbt's Incremental Microbatch Strategy. We're going to be talking about what it is, how you can use it, and how it compares to other dbt incremental strategies. If this is your first time on this channel, thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to have you on this channel. Please don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button as well. Also share this video with someone, right? So this video can reach out to other people who can benefit from this video as well. Alright, so let's hit the ball rolling. What is dbt's incremental microbatch strategy? Microbatch is an incremental strategy that was released in dbt core version 1.9 and above for time series data. Now, it allows you to bring in data in smaller chunks or batches, maybe hourly, daily, monthly, or yearly. What are some benefits of the microbatch strategy? One of the benefits is efficiency. Because you're not trying to bring in a large chunk of data that you've defined as new, microbatch just brings in your data in smaller batches that you have defined, maybe hourly batches or daily batches or monthly or yearly batches. It just brings in your data in smaller chunks, right? Which is also efficient for you and for your data warehouse as well. Another benefit is resilience. Now, what happens if your data pipeline fails or you have some late arriving data? You could just simply rerun a particular batch. So let's say, for example, you know that data is missing for a certain day. You could just rerun that particular batch without having to do a full refresh as you would have done with other dbt's incremental strategies. Another benefit we have is concurrency. The microbatch strategy allows you to run your batches concurrently when you set it, and this is also adapter specific, depends on the adapter you're using for your data warehouse. Another benefit we have is idempotency, right? So this means that every time you run a certain batch, you're going to get the exact number of records for that batch every time you run that batch. Now, this is quite exciting. Now, how does the microbatch incremental strategy works? Now, if you take a look at my screen right now, you're going to see some of the parameters needed for setting up your incremental microbatch strategy. First of all, you have to define your materialization, that this is an incremental materialization, and then the strategy is going to be microbatch. Now, a field that is very important for the microbatch strategy is the field called your event time. Now, your event time is the field that allows you to specify what field in your data set is your timestamp field. Remember, we said the microbatch strategy is usually best for time series data. What that means is that because the data is batched based on time, time buckets could be hourly, daily, monthly, or yearly. So it needs a time field or an event time field it can use to do those batches. Now, one of the things about your incremental models or incremental microbatch strategy is that the model you are setting as microbatch incremental, you would have to define the event time field in the direct parent upstream that table is feeding from. You also have to set the unique ID, which is a unique field for that data set. The look back period, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3. In the demo, we're going to explain what this look back looks like. And then the date at which you want to begin pulling in data into your data sets. And then your batch size. So it could be hourly, daily, monthly, or yearly as well. Now, something interesting about the microbatch strategy that we're going to see in the demo is that if you check your target folder, what dbt does is that it runs a particular query for every batch. So let's say you set your batch size to be day. So for every day, let's say 1st of August, 2nd of August, you're going to see dbt is going to run queries for each of those days to pull out data for those days for those days field. So I think a question that may be asked may be a question of time zones, right? Because we're dealing with time, right? And time zones can be interesting. Now, dbt has just set the time adapter for this microbatch strategy to be set to UTC. So this makes it easy for everyone, right? So if you wanted to convert this to a certain time zone for your own use case, then you can do that as well. But the default set for this microbatch strategy event time field is set to UTC. Alright, so let's jump on my screen and see what the demo looks like. Alright, so now you're on my screen. We're going to try to do a demo of what the microbatch incremental strategy looks like and how it works. So right now I have this data in my seed folder called raw data CSV. Typically, the first thing we need to do in this situation is to seed this data. So we're going to do dbt seed to seed this data into our data warehouse. All right, common snowflake. Yes, so we have this in now. 4 records inserted into our raw data table in through the dbt seed. And so I have this staging layer where basically all I just did was to cast this timestamp date field or timestamp field to an actual timestamp, right? And so the next thing to do is to run this field. So I do dbt run, select stage raw data, and this goes in as well. So the next thing I want to do, want to just view this our data within our data warehouse and see what that looks like. And I'm going to be using dbt show command. Apparently I've had several commands in the last time, so I'm just going to write that myself. Select star from this guy. Yeah, and I'm gonna limit 30. Okay, what's the error? I think the limit should have been small letters. I believe this should work. All right, yeah, so these are data. So imagine I have I added 3 more records into this. So let's say 4 more records into our data. So typically your incremental model will bring in new data, right? Oh, before I even bring this in, I've not run the incremental model. So while our data is still having just 4 records, let's run our incremental model. See, dbt run, select increment demo. So 2 things I like to state here before I talk about this config is that in the staging layer, I materialize this as a table and also set the event time field to be event timestamp. Because for your microbatch incremental model, the direct parent model that your incremental model is selecting from, you have to define the event time parameter in your config block, right? And so that's the only thing we did there. And here we can see that this materialized as incremental, strategy is microbatch, event time is event TS, unique ID is ID, loopback is 3, begins 1st of August, and batch size is D. All right, so let's make the loopback period 1 and let's run this model. So we have 14 batches inserted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 or 14 batches. I believe it's because my start date is on the 1st of August and I'm recording this video on the 14th of August, and so that's why we have 14 batches. And for the incremental batch, what dbt does is if you go to your target folder, you will see that dbt has a select for every day within the batch, within that incremental model. So it has a select from 1st to 2nd, a select from 2nd to 3rd, a select to 3rd to 4th. Unlike other incremental models where you have to specify how to identify new records, with the microbatch, dbt just selects records for every day based on your batch size. dbt supports hour, day, month, and year, but typically mostly what is going to be mostly used will be will be day. So let's see what our data looks like. All right, here, this is what we have, this is what we inserted, and this is what we have. All right, so let's add in new records into our raw data. I'm going to get in some extra records, and I'm just going to paste this in this seed file, and then do dbt seed again. Yep. All right, thank you, Snowflake. And then I'm going to run our staging layer, select stage raw data, and then I'm going to run our increments model. So we have just two batches right now. And you'll notice that the first batch is running for 13th of August, second batch is running for 14th of August, and the records are 0. So let's show what our data looks like for our increments model. If we run this guy, we're going to find we still have our 4 records. And if we do the same thing for our staging layer, to see our staging layer, if there's data there, we are going to absolutely find more records in our staging layer. Okay, let me limit this to 30 so we can see everything. Yeah, so we have all the records in here, but we don't have them in our incremental model. Now, why is this happening? This is happening because we just have a look back period of 1, and that's why the next time we run this query, dbt is just going to look back 1 day from your current dates, which is why I ran 13th and the 14th. And there are 2 ways you can go about this. That is because the records we entered are records for the first, for the second, for the first and for the second as well. And these days are past. So dbt would not like try to, contrary to other incremental models or other incremental strategies, that is going to search for new records based on the parameter you define for it to identify new records. In this instance, it just brings in batch. It just brings in your data by batch, which makes every batch idempotent, right? So in this case, dbt does not bring these new records because the batch for these records, which is on the first and second, has been brought in already. And we just have a look back period of 1. Two ways we can go about it. First of all, since it's just a small record, I could just make my look back period, let's see, 13 or 14 days. Let's see, 13 days. If I make look back period 13 days, it's going to look back past 13 days. So let's run this and see what this looks like. So you can see that we have 14 batches, and we have a batch for the first, a batch for the second, right? All right, so if we try to see what this looks like in our data, we see we have all the records that we're looking for. They've all been inserted, right? Really, this is really how this incremental model works. So let's see, I add more records in here again, and just to make this interesting and easier, I'm going to make this 13. I'm going to make this 13, and I'm going to make this 14, and I'm going to change the look back period to back to 1. So let's do dbt seed again. Now, if you don't want to tamper with the look back period, another way you can bring in records like or backfill as it were. This is the case of backfill as it were using the incremental model. You would have to use the event start time parameter and event time start parameter and event time end parameters in your dbt command statement, so that dbt can backfill those records. Or we'll probably just see what that looks like quickly. Okay, so let me add another record here. Let me add 2 more records. Let me see, this is on the 4th. So this will be 12, this will be 13, and this is on the 5th.
Let me make this 39, 38. Okay, so I've added 3 records for 13 and 14. Look back period is 1. Added 2 records for 4th and 5th. So let's see what's going to happen. So let's do dbt seed again. Okay, dbt, yeah, we have 13 records inserted. Let's run our our staging model. We have that in. Let's run our incremental model. Yeah. Notice again that because the look back period is 1, we just have 2 batches, batch for 13th and 14th. Now, unlike the previous time, if we show these records, if you look at our data now, you would notice that we have 11 records, and we brought in the records for 13. dbt brought in records for 13 and 14 because it's just looking for the look back period is just 1 day, so it's looking back 1 day and current dates, right, for incremental, right, assuming that every other day has been brought in already, right? That's why we have these records for 13 and 14. However, let's imagine you have a delaying data, a delaying record that just came in very, very late. Let's say 4th and 5th, right? So what do you do if you don't want to use the backfill method? You can use the stats time, no, event time stats, event time stats. So let's set this to 4th. This should be equal to, and event time end, and I'll make this 5th. So let's see. So this is really how you can backfill. Oh no, I have the quotes. Let me take this back again. Should be double quotes. Alright, what's the error? 2025. Okay. Yeah. So we can see that we are having just one batch, and that batch is for 4th. If I run this again, if we show our data, we are going to most likely have this 4th record coming, but we don't have the 5th record coming. Yeah, so that means I need to increase my start time and end time. So I think what we can do is to make this 4th, leave this as 4th, and make this 6th. All right, so let's run this. And of course, because the data is idempotent, you're not going to get incremental, you're not going to get duplicate records, right? It's just going to bring in the same records every time when you run in data. And if there are additional data that just came in due to late arriving data, it's going to add that as well. So you see we have 1 record inserted for 4th and 1 record inserted for 5th. So if we show this again, we are going to now have all our records from our source available. Yeah, 13 records, 4th, 5th, right? Yeah, really, this is how the dbt microbatch strategy works. Compared to other other incremental strategy methods, where you have to use the if incremental clause to specify what new data looks like, right? See where timestamp field on your data is greater than the maximum from your source, rather is greater than the maximum date time on your model, as it were. But however, for the microbatch strategy, it's quite different. It brings in every record per batch. That's why if you check your target folders, you will notice that there are several batches, and the batch for each day remains the same. And that's why it's idempotent. It always brings in data. The batch for the first will always bring data from first to second. The batch for second will always bring in data from second less than third. the batch for third, we bring in data from third less than fourth, right? So that's how this microbatch incremental strategy works. It's usually best for event sort of event data, right? So it helps you just bring in data batch by batch, right? Okay.
So when do you choose to use microbatch strategy? Is your dataset a time series dataset? Do you have partitions set for your dataset? And you want to avoid using the if incremental logic clause that we use for other incremental strategies, then perhaps this is the right time for you to use the microbatch incremental strategy. Alright, that's a wrap. So in this video, we have covered what incremental microbatch strategy is all about, when to use it, how you can use it, and why you should use it. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Have you used the microbatch strategy before? And let me know how you're using it as well. Some challenges you faced, right? I'd like to hear your thoughts and experience using the microbatch strategy. Please don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button as well. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye for now.